Good afternoon, all. I welcome you to the first lecture of the 21-day refresher course. And today we have with us Dr. Rasheed Sulaiman. Sir is Director, Center for Research on Innovation and Science Policy. And the topic chosen for deliberation is what is new in extension globally. Sir, you are audible as well as visible, and your presentation is also, the screen is also visible, and we have started recording the session. The session would be 1 hour long, and we would want to keep it below 1 hour by 5 minutes. Why? Because we want to give 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. All the questions by the participants will be entertained at the end of the session, be it via voice chat, be it via the chat in the chat window. Sir, you are audible as well as visible. Please start the session. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So you can see the full screen?
Yes, yes. Perfect.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I just introduce myself briefly. My name is Rasheed Sulaiman. I work with the Center for Research on Innovation and Science Policy based at Hyderabad. I previously worked in the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So I worked for 13 years in the NCAP, now it's called NIAP, National Institute of Agricultural Economics and Policy Research at New Delhi. So after 13 years, I left the system and then I started working with this center called Center for Research on Innovation and Science Policy. So professionally, I did all my studies in extension, and we at CRISP, we host the network called Agricultural Extension in South Asia. You can see the logo on the left top. ESI is a network of all extension, those who are interested and involved in extension and advisory services in the 8 countries in the region, South Asia, which is under the SARC. And ESI is also part of the network called the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services. That is why you can see the 3 logos, the ESA, CRISP, and GFRAS. And I wanted to today talk about what is new in extension globally. Because many people believe, when I was talking to them, they used to say that, no, there is nothing much happening in the area of extension, which is not very true. And we believe that over the last 1 decade, or maybe more than that, since the 90s, there's a lot of things have changed in the way we look at extension. And I wanted to talk about some of these. What are those significant changes? And what does it mean for the future of EAS? I wanted to talk about it because we are no longer only about transferring research findings to farmers. This is how extension evolved in the 60s, 70s. Many of you know the book, The Diffusion of Innovations by Rogers. So I think we were, at that time, the whole concept has been about increasing food production, increasing food productivity. So research is generating new technologies and we need to transfer. I think so the initial orientation of extension was entirely on that. Some of it is still needed. We are not saying that, no, these are not needed. But our role has expanded considerably over the last few years. So we have been asked new questions. We have been asked to play new roles. And there has been also a lot of developments in the theory and our understanding about what is the role of extension and what it should be doing and how it should be doing. So a lot of things have happened. And I wanted to focus on what is new. So this is what I wanted to focus in the next maybe 40 minutes or so. So what about the changing context behind extension? As I said before, the context has changed. We are now dealing with a large number of other problems, including climate change. Extension need to support adaptation to climate change, link farmers to markets, maybe promote new approaches, whether it's an agroecology, sustainable intensification, conservation of biodiversity. So there's a lot of demands dealing with nutrition, dealing with gender. So there are a lot of things have happened. So there have been a lot of conceptual evolution in terms of our understanding about communication, innovation, extension. New approaches have emerged. If you have to deal with the new problems, we need to have new capacities, especially the functional capacities. Several new platforms and networks have emerged to help professionals to learn, network from each other, So there is a lot of new knowledge resources currently available, though these are not really used or mainstreamed in our curricula. That is a different issue. And the new questions, I think professional questions which are now raising, and then people are asking extension to do it. Are you capable of doing it? Will you be able to do it? And then what are the implications of these developments on extension? So I think this is what I wanted to focus. So what is new in all these aspects? So this is what I wanted to focus. So coming to this whole changing context, globally extension is increasingly known as either as rural advisory services or as extension advisory services. So I think people nowadays talk about EAS for one of the reason is uh, extension emerged initially in the public sector. So when you say you are an extension agent, people believe that you are part of the public sector. Whereas now, as you can see, there's a lot of pluralism. Extension is being provided by the private sector, by the NGOs, by the farmers organizations. It doesn't mean that, no, many of them may not be using the term extension in their job title, but many of them, they may say they are a knowledge officer or a knowledge intermediary or an innovation support agent. So there are a lot of people use different types of facilitator. So there's a lot of many people. So we wanted to bring all these aspects, and then there is a broader understanding about extension, because it's more about not only about technology transfer, but also organizing farmers into groups, helping them to be linked to a lot many other sources of support and services. So I think we have a broader definition, so that is it. Second is, it is very high in the global agenda. We all know about the Sustainable Development Goals. I think 2015 at the United Nations level, many countries, donors came together, and even India is part of that. We have made commitments on Sustainable Development Goals. How are we going to, what every organization in every sector, how they are contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals, and which goals. For instance, extension is explicitly mentioned in the SDG 2, that is about end hunger. And extension can contribute to many other goals also. That's a different issue, but I think mainly focusing on the SDG 2, increasing pluralism, and I said about earlier, because we have now a broader mandate. Governments want extension to deal with a number of challenges, including sustainability, markets, gender, nutrition, migration, youth, climate change, disasters, including COVID-19. So I think there is a lot more demands on extension currently, or on our profession now, than what it was maybe in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. So that's the point which I wanted to make. And coming to the new concepts, now people are asking us about that extension should contribute to an agricultural innovation system. So this is the conceptual framework. So you can see in the middle, the bridging institution. So we are considered, extension globally is viewed as a bridging organization. It's not only connecting research and farmers, but with the business and enterprise, with the enabling environment, with the different other sectors. So different parts of the agricultural innovation systems, or different domains of the innovation system. And whenever we talk about innovation, also ideas have changed, because in the 60s, 70s, under the Rogers diffusion of innovations, innovation is a new idea that needs to be maybe absorbed, to be promoted, and to be adopted by farmers. Currently, we believe that innovation is a process. There have been a lot of other changes have happened, because initially innovation was considered as a technology, new technology, maybe a new variety of seed, or a machinery, or a new approach, that is what it has been considered. But increasingly, people from technical innovations, people started talking about institutional innovations, new ways of doing things, maybe the cooperatives, the group approaches. So these are all maybe even organizing producers as producer companies. These are all called institutional innovations. But now, which is what we are talking about, is that innovation is a process that is defined as a process of generating, adapting, diffusing, and using a new knowledge, which leads to increased income or increased production. So I think, so there is a lot of people. So currently we make a difference between invention and innovation. That is, scientists create inventions, but then it needs to go through a process of adaptation, diffusion, and use. And only when it is being used at a scale, then we only call as an innovation. So innovation is a process which connects both knowledge production as well as knowledge adaptation, use, and wider use and adoption. So the skill-based people are looking at is about, EAS should be about managing innovation. Do we know how to manage innovation? So I think that is the kind of a professional demands. So I think if you look at some of the job opportunities that are emerging globally, they all talk about, I think positions are rebranded and positions are now the new qualifications people are asking is about. You don't see enough positions on extension officers because people do not need them. What they need is innovation managers. If you look at many of the CGIAR advertisements, you can see people are asking for innovation managers who understand innovation system and who can do the scaling up new knowledge. So it's not about transferring a new technology to a few farmers in a village. It is all about scaling up. How do you scale up an innovation among maybe 10,000 farmers, 50,000 farmers, a lakh farmers? So the challenge is about scaling up, not merely about technology transfer. And the new communication skills are being asked is about facilitation. So facilitation is, people now call it as a new communication. Facilitation is a new communication. You need to understand how do you facilitate all these different agencies within the agricultural innovation system, the figure which you are seeing on the right. And the advisory services should be about scaling up. People talk about how do you scale up climate smart agriculture? How do you scale up maybe use of maybe artificial intelligence? People are asking about those questions, so about scaling up. So these are some of the new, and then there is a lot of publications which have come up in the recent years, which articulates these views. For instance, like the agricultural innovation, I think enhancing agricultural innovation from the World Bank, Agricultural Innovation Systems Handbook, they all have chapters on extension and what should be our role of extension within the agricultural innovation system. So we are not asking about what is the role of extension between the traditional role which they have been doing between intermediation between the research and farmers. People are asking about what is your capacity? How do you bring cohesion among the different actors in the innovation system? And if you look at the new extension is, I think 2012, this paper came up, this is a policy, a document came upon the new extension is. That means we're just talking about what are the new capacities that are needed by a 21st century extension professionals. And this document articulates, it came out through a lot of global consultations, national consultations, that we need to have a lot more functional skills than what we are having a bit of a communication. Our skills are not enough. It should be about facilitation. It should be about linking farmers to markets, value chain development, addressing gender, supporting the value chain development. So you have a large number of other type of skills, even addressing how do you promote or how do you support farmers to adapt to climate change. So we need to have a lot more other soft skills which we really need if we really wanted to be as successful in the 21st century as an extension profession. I am showing these names of these, the titles of these publications on the cover page, just to let you know that many of these publications or most of these publications are available online. And this was not the case maybe in the 80s when I was a student. We were not able to access many of these publications because the price of these publications are very high. There was no way of, internet itself was not there. So we were not able to, nowadays, many of these things are downloadable. And I told about the facilitation because this is the kind of a core competency. So that is also one of the reasons that, I think in the GFRAS, I think the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services developed a series of training modules. About 13, I think about 15, 18 modules are there, which is all free, downloadable, adapted. And this module was about introduction to facility, because this is a core skill which we should have. And we also developed, we developed a new module, because I think if you look at the middle picture, this is a training module on facilitation for development, which CRISP was involved in developing for the government of Odisha. The Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare in Odisha was looking for new capacities for their extension staff. Then they realized the Samedis don't have the they don't have the capacity to develop new modules. So we developed 4 modules, and one of these modules is on the facilitation for development. It also shows that these are the kind of core competencies. And when we did a capacity need assessment in Orissa with the extension people, including the department, all the line departments, and the universities, as well as the ICR research institutes, it came out that facilitation for development is a key knowledge gap. Our people at the field level as well as people at the senior level need training on facilitation for development. And at the bottom level, it is all about, at the district level, it is all about about facilitation with the other line departments, or maybe working together, mobilizing farmers into groups. But at the higher level, it is all about interdepartmental collaboration, working with the private sector, public-private partnerships, developing policies. These are the kind of thing. And as I said before, scaling up is one of the important capacity gap. And this is something which we need to, because a lot of job opportunities are in this sector of scaling up. Every organization wants experts who can help scaling up. Even now, the research organizations need people who can scale up, not to organize a farmer's fair, or not to organize a minister's visit, or demonstrate 1 or 2 technologies in 4 villages. That is no longer enough. I'm not saying that is not important. That's no longer enough. We need to build these capacities, and this is what the discipline is demanding currently. And I said in the beginning about the new approaches. So the discussions are all about how do innovations in financing, because only public sector funding is not enough. So how do you broaden the funding for extension? Because extension needs a lot more funding. It is generally underfunded in most countries globally. And I would also say even in India, in terms of our operational costs, there is very limited funding. Okay, there are large number of people are involved, but can we develop financing mechanisms, maybe with public-private collaboration, or with co-financing with farmer organizations, co-financing with other agencies, maybe with the National Livelihood Mission. So there have been people have started thinking about and then make it more demand-driven. But that means you need to have farmers organizations which are part of the management of this organization, and then you should have good farmer organizations. Value chain extension is something becoming a very important thing. Value chain is not merely about sending through SMS the price of in 10 different markets is not value chain extension. It's only market information provision, but it is all about educating farmers on the markets, coordinating the different actors in the value chain, and establishing new business linkages, not merely strengthening the existing value chain, but also developing new value chains. Another is nutrition sensitive extension. A lot of things have happened in this area because addressing nutrition is considered as an important criteria. And recently we were part of developing a methodology, in the sense we developed it's called the Global Capacity Needs Assessment Methodology on how do we integrate extension in advisory services, programs, and policies. I think the next page, I will have the cover page. And the third new approach is about promoting agroecology. There's a lot of discussions on what should be the role of advisory services in promoting agroecology. I don't know, some of you might be knowing, in Sri Lanka recently, I think in the last 1 month, I think the government decided that they were not going to use, the government didn't give time to prepare for either the research or the extension people. They took a decision that from this month onwards, we are not going to import even a single chemical fertilizer or pesticide. And Sri Lanka is not producing any real chemical fertilizers. So now there is a big issue there. Now the government is very firm. The policy decision has been taken. Research and extension is not prepared because they have only one of a chemical intensive agricultural methods technology that was there. So now they are wondering what to do. What are we going to do? We need to work now in a different way. We need to have more trials, more experiments on a non or a less input intensive or a no chemical input intensive agriculture. Maybe we need a different type of a farming systems. Changes have to happen at different levels. So there's a lot of pressure. on the developing countries to, and then there's a lot of pressure from the farmer organization side who have a winner. And then I'm not talking about organic agriculture, which is a different game, but in terms of having help small farmers have to achieve better production and maybe increase their income by reducing their dependence on external inputs. And then if you look at the bottom, I have given extension for entrepreneurship, use of ICTs and gender, because I put it in a lower priority, because there's a lot of things which have been going on in the last maybe 10 years, 20 years on some of these. But I think on the top four, I think this is something which we need to think about. And I also shown you the module 10, the role of extension in supporting value chains. This is from the GFRAS module. These are all downloadable. All everything which you wanted to learn on these, you can learn from that. And extension and also on the global, on integrating nutrition. So I'm just giving you some of the, because these are all, I just wanted to show you that these are all available. The discussion is happening. It is not fiction. I think if you look at the Gender and Rural Advisory Service, I'm going from the left to the right, the Gender and Rural Advisory Services assessment tool. So this was developed by FAO, which is trying to look at how organizations need to prepare if you really wanted to address gender. It cannot simply happen by putting 50% or showing 50% of the beneficiaries as women. It doesn't help. So you need to have more capacities, not merely at the individual field extension level, but also at the organizational level in terms of retaining, attracting more women staff. So address many of the problems at a larger organizational level. And the youth is a major topic currently. It's the youth. How do you address young farmers, attract and retain young farmers? Then this is what I talked about, the global capacity needs assessment methodology. How do you integrate? Simple, because we also did a study in Telangana on what is the existing, who is addressing nutrition through agriculture, because nutrition is being addressed by many people. I think by the Ministry of Health, by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, partly by the Rural Development Department. But how do you promote nutrition sensitive agriculture, and what is the role of extension in this thing? What capacities we need? Maybe we might need to change the mandate, because the mandate is still focused on increasing production or productivity. So there have been, or maybe we might need a better capacity to plan our interventions under the nutrition, the National Nutrition Mission or the Poshan Abhiyan. What we are now currently doing is only a Poshan Abhiyan, that week where we bring a few women farmers and give them saplings. So this is how we at the moment manage things. So health, Ministry of Rural Development and Women and Child Development are collaborating. Agricultural departments are still not yet fully integrated into it. So can we do something on these things? Work with I think on the school nutrition gardens, train the ASHA workers or the other workers in the grassroots workers who are addressing nutrition from a different perspective. But can we also train them? Can we develop modules for them and give a 2-day training, maybe at the KVK level, or maybe organize it at the university level? Train them on how, when they anyway try to go and work with their clients, especially pregnant women, mothers, young mothers. So you need to, can we also help them to provide information related to agriculture and how agriculture can also help in maybe different ways of growing crop diversification? How can they also help in bringing a better nutrition? And the last one is on the upscaling climate smart agriculture. This is a paper which we did for FAO. So this is, what are the lessons for extension advisory service if you really wanted to upscale climate smart agriculture? And the top is this whole discussion under this Commission on Sustainable Agriculture Intensification on what is the role of extension advisory service in promoting sustainable agriculture, sustainable intensification, and if agroecology is one of the becoming a major priority. And we have been seeing it. It is for example, in the government of Andhra Pradesh, it's a major priority. In many states, it is taking traction, and then it's in many other countries also. So we should be prepared, and we need to understand what are the new capacities which we need if we wanted to address, and what are the new approaches that can help us in moving forward. Coming to this whole new capacities, because nowadays we are talking about right corner, 3 levels of capacity: individuals, organizations, and enabling environment. So if we don't do a capacity need assessment, really, we should be always under optimizing our resources, because we all know, because in many national, regional, state level, district level training centers, it's much of our training programs are supply driven, and many times it also depends upon who is their faculty, who has come based who has come on transfer. So many of the topics are decided by what the faculty know, not really by what really the clients need in terms of capacity. So I think in 2015 we developed this capacity need assessment, a guide for facilitators. You can see it in the middle. So we did workshops to understand how are we going to develop, what are the gaps in capacity at the individual level, and within individual level also, field level extension personnel might need a different type of a capacity. Middle level managerial people need a different level of capacity. Senior people, maybe the director of agriculture, deputy director, joint directors of agriculture might need a different capacity. The same case with the director of extension. They might need a different capacity than probably people working at the KVK level. So unless we do a capacity need assessment, and now there's a guide on how do you organize a 2-day capacity need assessment. And our focus has been, as I said, the new extension is also talking about what are the new functional capacities that are needed. And there's a lot of discussion currently on professionalizing extension. I think that is the cover image of a paper which I have shown it there. Because many countries, for instance, like South Africa, I think Philippines, many countries in the German many countries in the Europe, they need, like the medical professional is registered with the Indian Medical Association. So we need also, extension also, people also need to register with a council, and they need to renew their I think, professional, I think certification, whatever, every 5 years. And then they also look at what are the training programs you have undertaken. This is all converted to credits, so that everybody will not become an extension professional. Here, actually, anybody from a saint, Swami, anybody can give advice on agriculture, on many things, on maybe how maybe some inputs will work, or you don't have to do this, or you use many other unscientific kind of a practices. So I think this is also to make sure that, but then this is a long game. We are not in that game yet, but it will take maybe another 5 years, 10 years. We develop standards for extension professionals. And what are the standards for capacity development? For instance, now like in the ICR, so you have to undergo this kind of a 21-day training program. No, there could be weaknesses in everywhere, but I think you still have a system. That 21-day training program you may need to undergo if you have to move from one position to the other, maybe from senior scientist or to the principal scientist. So you need to have, and the universities under the UGC also have, but in the extension, we don't have any of that kind of a sort. There is no mechanism to make sure that people get the proper orientation before they move to the next level. I think in ICR also it was there. I think still probably. I think this RMP. If you wanted to become a research management RMP level, you need to undergo a kind of a course at NAM on, there's a pre-RMP, even if you wanted to apply. So that means you need to have different type of a capacity when you move to the next layer. But within extension, this has not been there. So I think even if you join at a graduate level, then you can go up. If I'm talking for the line department, you can reach up to the maybe the additional director without going through many of the courses, because the capacities that are needed at that level are different from what you are at a field professional level. And some of the training programs most of them are technical, not very functional. You might get a training on integrated pest management, but you don't have a training on maybe policy advocacy or on public-private partnerships. So there's a lot of interest in terms of developing new capacities, understand what are the new capacities that are needed, and to professionalize extension. And there's a lot of information, I think. So if you look at this publication, Global Good Practice Notes, what works in rural advisory services. This was developed by GFRAS. This is all accessible. I'm telling you, every document which I'm showing are downloadable, and I will show you the source. These global good practice notes were created because there's a lot of demand at the global level to help development project managers on what approaches and tools to select. For instance, you are appointed as a program manager at one particular country, or you wanted to know whether if I have this much resources, what approaches which I should use, whether I should invest my money, everything in a farmer field school, or I should develop a mobile application, or I might be doing only a training of trainers, or maybe I will use the radio or video based extension, or maybe I will use community. I will recruit community facilitators and work with them. So people wanted to know what we can learn from the experiences globally on many of these aspects. Maybe it could be farmer field school, value chain development, use of radio, use of different ICTs, use of innovation platforms. So people were wanted to know, get about 6-pager, 4 to 6 page information on what they should. They are not going to come for a PG program on extension. So we wanted to know about it. So I think this is a good compilation of global good practice in rural advisory services. And the right one is a publication which really talks about what is happening in extension worldwide, transition, and what are the kind of changes. So I would urge you, when you get time to look at some of these publications, and you need to learn, improve on your own, because currently our systems are not really geared up for a full-scale capacity development, unfortunately. Another thing I wanted to say is about the new platforms, because these have all emerged in the last 10 years. If you look at the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services, GFRAS is the Global Forum for Extension, which is now called as the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services. It was established in 2010. But over the period of the last over a decade, it has done a lot of work on global policy advocacy for extension. That is, even going to the G20 meetings, many of the G7 meetings, talk to the people, go to the UN, argue for making more investments in extension and developing new capacities. Then brought a lot of extension people on a global platform, so you can come together and start discussing. These were not there earlier. If you look at, I'm just trying to make a comparison between, if you look at the research system, CGIAR institutions like whether it's ICRISAT, IRI, CIMIT, many of them have been there for a long time. So because of that, people in one country know who is working on maybe if it's on water management, or if it is on rice or wheat, or in millets from one country and the other. So people know who is our counterpart in maybe Bangladesh, or who is counterpart in Nepal, working on similar set of problems. But in extension, this was not there. So GFRAS was established mainly to provide policy advocacy, because there is nobody arguing for enhanced investments, new capacities, and new roles for extension. Otherwise, extension will slowly decline in terms of its capacity, in terms of its manpower, so we'll be losing it. And with that, as part of that, the GFRAS also established a number of other regional and sub-regional networks globally. And one of it is Agricultural Extension in South Asia, which we are hosting. So if you look at the GFRAS networks, that means globally, all over the world, extension networks have emerged. Africa has an AFAS, African Forum for Advisory Services. Then you have the Eastern Africa, the Southern and Western Africa has a network. Agricultural Extension, you can see it. The Mekong region, you have a Mekong Extension Learning Alliance. Right side, if you look at the PIRAS, that's the Pacific Islands, have a network. North America has a North American Agriculture and Advisory Services network. Relacer is the network in Latin America. Europe has a UFRAS. So I think people are coming together and joining them into networks, and then they learn and exchange information across each other. These networks don't give you any award, don't give you any certificate of participation. So if you're only coming to these meetings thinking that your paper will get published, or you will get an award, or you will get a certificate of participation, this is not the place. These are about professionals talking to each other and learning from each other on what is new, what capacities are needed, and what are the good experiences which are happening globally. And this is coming to this Agricultural Extension South Asia is a major platform. Probably the only platform which is a focus on extension in South Asia. And we have been publishing a lot of blogs, good practices. Many of you have contributed. I think some of you have written, KVKs have written some of the good practices. So this is how we learn from each other. It is not merely by attending a training program or a course. This is not probably what we are now learning. Learning is is a new. Now we have moved to the online like this, but already the learning is going to be much more of a self learning, and we have now a new set of learning from experiences, learning about the new perspectives from different blogs. A lot of new publications have come. These are all some of the things. For example, if you wanted to evaluate extension, so there's a guide to evaluating rural extension. Many countries are have started. There's a lot of interest in developing extension policies in different countries. So the GFRAS developed a document, a policy compendium on experiences in developing and promoting extension policies. A lot of good practice notes. We developed this manual on good practices in extension research and evaluation because we realized that, I think in 2015, that no, unless we do a real capacity development of the faculty as well as the students in terms of new approaches, better approaches to research and evaluation, we will never be able to come out with a very good professional knowledge and policy relevant findings if you wanted to influence, if you wanted to really influence extension policies, projects, activities, implementation, etc. And then this is a blog book. Anyway, these are all. So I think there's a lot happening in this region. And then this is what, as I said about the ASA has been doing. We have been. I think this month we have 153 blogs, meeting notes, good practice notes, book reviews. These are all to help professionals understand and learn about new things in the profession. So if you don't start reading and contributing, it's not merely about reading, because many of you have experiences of working in the field, so you can contribute a lot about in these kind of formats. So we are there to help in terms of technically editing it and getting it language edit and publishing, and we have a Facebook group. I think that link is down below. Called the name of agricultural extension in South Asia. We have something like 20,800 members. I think many of you might be members in the group, but every day we make sure that we publish, we put something, maybe a link to a new publication or a news item about what is happening in the area of extension, new publication, workshops, seminars, which you could attend. So we develop it as a knowledge base. Coming to so I talked about some of these aspects in terms of new approaches, tools, capacities, platforms, knowledge products. So now the question is about what are the new questions which we are being asked to. One is about the evidence of impact. People have been always talking about, oh, extension has no impact. It's not I would say it is not no impact. It is about no evidence of impact. These are two different things. So if our senior managers, if the DDG extension, or I would say even the director of extension of your university wanted to argue for enhanced funding maybe for the next 5 years, or maybe maintain the same level of funding even for that one, you need to make a presentation at the ministry level, either the Ministry of Finance, Department of Finance, and then what is the evidence you can show that, okay, because of this, our activity, this much, maybe, people have enhanced their income, or they have enhanced their productivity, or we contributed better to the rational use of inputs. So many times we don't have any. So that's one of the reasons that we need to strengthen our research. Not merely the MSc research, which is many times happens at maybe few villages, but I think we need to have much more research beyond the MSc PhD research work. Mega projects, which is trying to help work with the extension system and develop evidence of impact. There's a lot of work which is going on in developing an indicator framework for extension, from input activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact. So on that impact pathway, how can we show, what are the indicators we need to collect? So unless we do that, we won't be able to answer these questions, and then we won't be able to show that we have an impact. Another is on the inclusiveness, impact on the poor. Equity has never been a big issue, big consideration in extension, because it has been always about increasing productivity, or maybe increasing mostly productivity, those kind of a thing. But I think there's a lot of questions are being asked about the properness of interventions, and people are not willing to fund unless it is with small farmers, family farmers. I think globally people wanted to make sure that we really address the poor and the vulnerable and maybe the tribal indigenous communities. Scaling up new knowledge, I have already said, so I do not want to talk about it. But even the CGR Institute, we organized two training programs for one for the IRI in Orissa and one for ICRSAT, IDC, ICRSAT Development Center, to help scientists to understand what do you mean by really scaling up? What is the difference between scaling out, scaling up? How do we develop a scaling up strategy? Because donors, national governments wanted to see impact at a scale, maybe with 1 million farmers. This is or maybe in the dryland areas of India, or maybe, this is how people, the governments, even the Niti Aayog, everybody wanted to see impact at a scale. So what are we doing? Another is about the coordination of pluralistic EAS. Advisory services are not merely only the public sector, private NGO, producer organizations in several countries. Globally, this is a big issue. How do you coordinate a pluralistic EAS? How do you respond to crisis like whether it's a COVID-19 or disasters like natural disasters? How are we going to deal with the quick response? Do we have our ability to quickly respond to these kind of shocks and uncertainties? Identifying capacity gaps and improving organizational performance. One of the questions we have been working closely with the Orissa government for the last 4 or 5 years. So we did an organizational and management review of the Department of Farm Extension Services of the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. So we need to help other organizations in terms of improving their performance. So we need to have methodologies which will help us in addressing and identifying the gaps and suggesting ways forward. So I think these are all new capacities which we need. And other questions, which approaches work better in which conditions? For instance, a program is coming, maybe ADB is coming with a new program to support maybe in Maharashtra. We have several programs that have been happening. IFAD programs are there. So they all wanted to know, okay, which approach work better in which conditions? Do we have any evidence? For instance, we are coming with, okay, we have the 100 crores will be invested in a new program, maybe for Vidarbha. So, and they are asking the extension people to decide, okay, what should be our approach what should be our extension approach in terms of addressing the kind of a problems there? And each approach has a kind of a cost and a potential benefit. So do we have a mechanism to understand these kind of issues? Similarly, promoting specific approaches. I told you agroecology, sustainable intensification, agrobiodiversity, conservation, nutrition, agriculture. We need to have a strategy as a profession. We need to have a strategy on how extension should be organized. Another is all public-private partnerships in EAS. That is a major topic globally. Investments in EAS, because there's no mechanism to track investments in extension. Methodological challenges are there. So, but still we need to come up with ways of what are the investments happening in advisory services. We need to have more research. We need to develop indicators on that. Another is the role of extension policy. As I told you, many countries have developed their extension policies, not merely extension policy, come up with extension policy, then come up with operational guidelines to implement the policy, linked with a budget for what extension should be doing. Because countries realize that if you don't even have an extension policy, people can say, no, we don't need extension anymore. And there is already people sometimes talk about, okay, AI is there, digital technology is there, digital solutions, people will get everything from the mobile phone, which is not the right, which is not because we are from extension, but I think you still need a lot of hand-holding support. You need to have a human intermediation if you really wanted to help small farmers, family farmers, and if you wanted to have an equity objective in your thing. So I think these are some of the new questions. And then this has implications. This is maybe the last one or two slides which I wanted to talk on. What are the implications of these developments? Are we preparing our students, young researchers and extension professionals to deal with changing content, changing context, and improving the curricula and link them to new platforms of professional development? Actually, we are not doing anything on this. 2 years back, anyway, with ICR subject matter committee, we are part of it. With Manage, together we developed a new curricula for the MSc and the PhD level. It's a part of all courses revisions, I think, from not only about extension social sciences, but I think all disciplines. So there's a massive exercise ICRA has done, but I think it has not yet been, finally it has not come. So we are just waiting, because long time ICR has been taking um, to come up with to publish, recommend, and approve the new curricula and send it to the university. And we hope at least this will come soon, so that at least the new curricula will come into operation in the next academic year. We try to address many of the capacity gaps in agriculture, including training of agricultural innovation systems, many things which are not there in our existing curricula, and improve the capacities on many of these aspects. And we hope it will come sometime soon. So we looked at the review of the agricultural extension curricula in India. So this was done in 2018. After that, only we worked on the new curricula with the ICR subject matter committee. And other question is about, uh, are we supporting the state national extension managers to answer their concerns? If you talk to the joint secretary extension in the Krishi Bhavan, or maybe the secretary agriculture, or maybe at the state level, the APC, Agriculture Protection Commissioner, they all wanted answers to these questions. They are not asking for, maybe, in your demonstration, how many farmers have been covered. Bigger level questions we need to address. How do you coordinate pluralistic EAS, build partnership with other EAS actors, not only research, but also maybe with all other actors. Policy engagement and advocacy. You need to have evidence to, if you want to really advocate for a higher extension investments in higher investments in extension in, then we need to have evidence on, and how are we doing, what is the role and performance of our samitis in terms of uh, training, or maybe the regional training centers in terms of training our faculty, training our trainers, training our professionals. So not merely farmers, I'm talking about training our extension professionals. So capacity need assessment and designing better programs. So I think these are all which we need to do. But there are several, and I said the final slide probably, this is we have several new sources to learn from. On the left side, I just give you the Tapipedia. This is a tropical agricultural platform. Lot of resources on how do you enhance, how do you really contribute to an agricultural innovation system. On the right side, this is our ESA web portal. We have organized the resources. ESA is not merely about publishing blogs, good practices. We have also organized, we have been collecting a lot of materials, and then organizing these under different themes. So if you look at from agroecology, agri-ownership, agrotourism, concepts and practice in extension, you can read it. Climate change, gender, ICTs, nutrition. So there is a lot of good. So all resources we are trying to link them in one place. So that it will help students. It will help people who wanted to learn more from this. And then we also have country-wise, because 8 countries, publication from the different countries organized. So I think these days you cannot complain about lack of learning resources, and we cannot simply depend upon that on this kind of webinars as well as classroom training or teaching to enhance the skills, because there's a huge skill gap, and unless we take our own initiative in terms of learning, and then many of these publications, many of these modules are now meant for self-learning. So I think so. This is a time that you all use some of these. So to recap, I'm going back to the same slide. What we discussed today is about, we talked about the changing context. There is no new demands because the context has changed. We talked about the new concepts around extension, about communication and innovation. We need new approaches. We need to develop new capacities to deal with the new challenges. We also discussed about platforms and networks like the GFRAS, yeah, ESA, and there are many other platforms like even the FAO research and extension page. So there have been several publications, new platforms to learn from, knowledge sources are available from there. And we also discussed some of the kind of the new questions being asked at the policy level, and also at the planning and implementation level, and our implications for these. So this is where I wanted to stop, because I thought this is the first day, and if we keep this kind of a very broader perspective in mind, then probably we should be able to do better. And all these publications which I have mentioned are all available in any of these different sources. So I think this won't be, and then you can always write to us if you wanted to have some that kind of a professional help to maybe with getting an access to a publication or any of those kind of a thing. So I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any questions, please ask. We have a few minutes so that we could ask our esteemed guest. If there are any questions pertaining to topic, please ask. There is one comment in the chat itself.
What is that? Can you read?
You can click on it. Yes, yeah, you can click on it. Chat at the bottom. Yeah, perfect. Chat, not the users. Can you click on the chat? Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think this is from Jairaj.
Yeah.
Who is my
Yeah.
Who has been my roommate and classmate. Jairaj, go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. I think it is a wonderful session. A lot more even to explore, especially autonomous state of Kerala, where the land holding size is hardly from 10 cents to 1 acre. So, cluster-based approach and result-based management for that particular approach should be the key in all the development programs. And we have to redefine the extension protocols developed in other parts of the state, suitable to the state like Kerala, where different ecosystems are there, especially wetland ecosystem, commercial ecosystem, homestead ecosystems, and the plantation ecosystem. So I think all our technologies are to be groomed in such a way to suit each ecosystem in a localized manner. Apart from considering the other part of our country, Kerala is unique in all aspects, and each model is separately we have to think of. That's what I want to comment. Anyway, thank you, Dr. Rasheed.
Okay. No, I completely agree because because unless because from a very general recommendations or a package of practices, we need to do a lot more adaptive research and extension efforts at the ground level. So this is something which is, so these are all the kind of a new priorities. And if you look at from the KVK at the point of view, so these are the kind of priorities. But the question is, are our professionals being trained to do these, and do we recognize this as a priority? That is why we need to have more discussion. That's why we are talking about, we need to link up. Even within extension community, there is no kind of a proper network which is trying to bring people together. No, there are professional societies are there, but professional societies are all about organizing a workshop or a seminar and giving a award. They are not addressing this kind of a learning or maybe the professional challenges. I think this is something should be a priority. I will give a small example, and for instance, in Bangladesh, now Bangladesh has created a Bangladesh Agricultural Extension Network, where the private, public, people who have an interest in extension have come together as a network to discuss. So we probably need to have at the state level extension networks, country level extension networks, and especially state level extension networks to discuss what are our professional challenges and what are the best practices in addressing these. Thanks, Jairaj, for raising this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Majid sir?
Hi. Who is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. This is Prakash Rathod, sir.
Yeah, boliye, sir.
Yeah, sir, actually, it was a nice presentation. In fact, I am not going to ask you any questions because I know about you as well as the discussions we can do regularly also. But for the information of all the participants, I just would like to say one or two words about him. Basically, any person who is doing any research, maybe masters or PhDs, you don't find any thesis or any papers without the references cited in his name, Dr. Rasheed Sulaiman. So he is actually a well-versed figure, mostly I can say, in extension field, and a very gentle person as well, actually very like down to earth, I can say, because in many of the forums we have seen him, and personally also we are in touch, but I'm sure actually many of you will be knowing him, and I really thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time. I'm sure with your presentation, most of our participants may be really enlightened. And if there are any queries, you can please participants can ask, because I can say he's not Indian, maybe national, because he has a good reputation even at the international levels, maybe with GFRAS, even World Bank and FAO, all those international bodies. Any questions, please, are open for discussion.
I'm also pasting my email ID in case of people wanted to. I'm just typing it. So at some point, if you wanted to catch, I think PPT you will be sharing, I believe.
Yeah, we will be giving the videos of this presentation, sir. YouTube.
Sir,
videos.
if you can give us the PPT via our email, we'll make it part of the YouTube video itself.
Okay. No, I send it to that info. I think in the to Majid,
Yeah,
he will be able to handle, and then I think
Yeah, exactly, sir.
I can share it with the participants.
Yeah, Majid sir, if there are no questions, I think please you can close it.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir. No problem. On behalf of the participants and on behalf of the organizing committee, would want to extend our gratitude and thanks to Dr. Rasheed Sulaiman. Sir, thank you very much, sir, for being with us.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Participants can leave and join back tomorrow, 11. We'll be sharing the link like today. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.